I want to talk about the parable of the wheat and the tares in the sense of how does it apply to Torah? Because that's one of the things we really should look at when we read the New Testament, the so-called New Testament, Brit Hadashah, is how were these things, how were these things tied to the Torah? And you've got in Matthew 13, you get the parable of the wheat and tares. Starting in verse 24, it says, Jesus presented another parable to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field, but while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went away. But when the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the tares became evident. The slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? And he said to them, An enemy has done this. The slaves said to him, Do you want us then to go and gather them up? But he said, No. For while you are gathering up the tares, you might uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, First gather up the tares and bind them into bundles to burn them up, but gather the wheat into my barn. And then it's in verse 34, it explains it, where it says this. Then he left the crowds and went into the house, and his disciples came to him and said, Explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. And he said that the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. And as for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, and the tares are the sons of the evil one. And the enemy who sows them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of the age. And the reapers are angels. So just as the tares are gathered up and burned in the fire, so shall it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send forth his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all stumbling blocks and those who commit lawlessness. What is lawlessness? Torahlessness. And will throw them into the furnace of fire. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear. I would say that actually implies, let him hear and obey. He who has ears, let him hear and obey. Hear and obey. Just like the Shema says, Hear, O Israel. But you see the tares are thrown away. The tares are of the evil one, the Hasatan, the adversary. And how does this apply to Torah, though? Well, if you go back to Leviticus 19, you find in verse you shall love neighbor as yourself. It says that where it talks about harming the edges of the beard, but it also says that 19, you are to keep my statutes. You shall not breed together two kinds of your cattle. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor wear a garment upon you with two kinds of material mixed together. And in the thing about material, you can read in another passage where it says wool and linen. The difference being wool from an animal, linen is from a plant. You don't put the two together, their frequencies are different. But like it says, you shall not breed together two kinds of your cattle. I think you look at that with where the passage in where Yeshua talks about an ox and a donkey cannot be yoked together properly to pull because they're different temperaments, and one of the other things is that they one is a clean animal, one is an unclean animal. The clean and the unclean should not be mingling there. But the whole point of this, you shall not sow two kinds of seed in your field. I believe that is where the wheat and the tares, why this parable is so important, because it's an illustration of a violation. Sowing the tares is a violation of Torah, and it says the lawless ones. And if you ever look, the roots, and there are times where pastors won't deal with someone that may be disruptive in a congregation. They won't deal with them in certain ways because they may have too much pull. Their roots, so to speak, may be intertwined with the wheat. So when if they pull those people out, some of the wheat will be uprooted and follow the tares as well. But the purpose of not sowing two kinds of seed is separating the holy and the profane. And I feel like that's a big part of the whole parable of the wheat and the tares. Just like you read about and it says in one place, one or two places, it says the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. You know, by our love, we can harvest people. Like it says, by your love for one another, they will know you are my disciples. So if we have love for one another, if we have love for our fellow men, they will know who we belong to. Just like it says, men will see your good works. Let your light so shine before men that he will see your good works and glorify God. Our good works toward people, it doesn't save us, but it allows the world to see the glory of Yahweh. And if you read in John 17, the prayer, he says that I have done. If you read in John 17, it says, this is eternal life. This is verse 3. This is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. I glorified you on the earth. How did he glorify him? By keeping the Torah perfectly. Because his glory is like a consuming fire. Well, but the whole thing of the glory is, just like our good works, we bring glory to God. We bring glory to Yahweh by our good works, because people see that and glorify God. That's where he brought the glory. He showed the glory. I've glorified you on the earth, having accomplished the work which you have given me to do. Now, Father, glorify me together with yourself, the glory which I had with you before the world was. And then it goes on to say, keep them in your name. This is in verse 11, the latter part. Keep them in your name, the name which you have given me, that they may be one, even as we are one, as we are. While I was with them, I was keeping them in your name, which goes to my videos that I've done about in his name. His name is a character. The name is a character. Behold the hand, behold the nail. This is God is love, just like it says in John 3:16 that people love to quote. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever shall believe in him shall have everlasting life. And you read on, which is important there too. But basically, he glorified the Father by living Torah perfectly. And he proclaimed the name. I have shown them, he talks about, I had shown them your name. He showed them the name by keeping Torah perfectly. That's why the wheat and the tares is so important, is as wheat, the more we live this book, we can convert the tares to, symbolically speaking, those that are, and we also can help others from stumbling by showing them. That's what discipleship is about, is showing other people. But I believe those two verses are the verse of the wheat and the tares, and Leviticus, where it says don't sow two kinds of seed, are connected, and that's why that parable is there. It's just like wise and foolish virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. And he says, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. And just like he says in Matthew 7 or 10, where it says that many will say to me, Lord, Lord, and he will say, depart from me, for I never knew you. They thought they were doing things in his name, and he says, I never knew you, you who practice lawlessness, you who practice Torahlessness. And what are the tares? The tares are lawless ones. That's the parable. The lawless ones, the ones that profaned the instructions of God. The instructions of Yahweh are in the Torah. My sheep hear my voice. As you read in John 14. My sheep hear my voice. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. Torah is his commandments, because Torah is all about love. Love of God, and practicing the wedding feast, the wedding, that we may be his bride, and about loving one another. And by that we are being wheat. By obeying Torah, we are being wheat. So hopefully this gives you some things to think about. Shalom, shalom, and may Yahweh bless and keep you and make his face shine upon you and give you peace.